TPAT is a model about the integration of technology that really talks about the notion that within the classroom you're looking at technology, which allows for all kinds of interactions to take place. In our case, it permits the creation of virtual classrooms with blogs. It permits the creation of digital learning and evaluation files, etc. So that's one kind of corner of the triangle, if you will. Pedagogy, which is really the teaching and the learning process. The decisions that teachers make every day, whether to create a roundtable discussion so the kids are working face-to-face, whether to give them time to write on their blog, whether to throw out a reflection question that everybody is working on together, whether to take two students aside who are struggling and give them a reflection question that is specific to the problems they're having. Those are all pedagogical decisions that a teacher makes on an everyday basis, probably 1,000 times a day, many times instinctively because of his or her years of experience. And the content, which is the third part of the triangle, which is really knowledge and the program itself and the competencies that we want the students to develop. And it's really the teacher who decides, based on their comfort level, their expertise, what they have available to them. Not every school and school board has the same level of technological resources available or support from the principal and teaching staff. But the idea is that ultimately, once you start integrating technology into a classroom, it will affect every corner of the triangle. You can decide to what extent it affects it, but it will change how you teach and how you interact with the students. It will change how the students interact with you. It will change how they interact with each other. It will change how they interact with the content and how you teach the content. So I have these sort of three corners. I have technology, I have pedagogy, and I have content. And where they overlap is really up to me how broad I want that overlapping circle to be or how small I want it to be. But the trick is that I think at this point in time in 2013 with students in secondary 5, there should be that circle in the middle should exist. I guess that would be my sort of bottom line point is it should exist. The integration of technology should be there. And then it's up to you to decide how big that circle should be. The digital learning and evaluation files are obviously something that is very easy for a teacher to access. Probably many teachers still function this way with the paper portfolios where there's no way you could do your marking at home because you would have too much paper to carry home. But with a digital portfolio, you could do that because you have access not only to all their blog entries and comments and reflections, etc., but they can hyperlink videos, podcasts, other types of productions, other websites that they're using. So you can have a pretty broad, you may not have everything in their portfolio. There may always be, like if I'm thinking of someone who is an artist, for example, and she may have created a little maquette for something she's going to do. You might not have access to that in your digital portfolio, but she might have put photos of it. So the digital portfolio allows you to evaluate students from anywhere at any time. And of course, from a pedagogical point of view, it supports this notion of socio-constructive learning. Françoise talked about doing the evaluation rubrics with her students, and that's a wonderful example of how the students co-construct knowledge together. They started at the beginning of the year talking about competencies, and they don't really understand what that means, and evaluation criteria. And bit, by reviewing it and talking about it and introducing it with different vocabulary every time, they keep bringing more experience and more knowledge to those discussions. And by about now, in March, they're starting to have a pretty clear idea. Oh, okay, that's what that competency means. That's what that evaluation criteria means. So it's called, you know this word, iteration. You keep going over the same material, but in a spiral effect. So you're always reiterating the same things, but always introducing new ideas, more vocabulary, making it richer and deeper. And so the socio-constructivist aspect of the learning being constructed by the students grows. And again, that's that whole metacognitive aspect as well. So I think I've talked about this, creativity, feedback. The students as well, I forgot to mention, of course, one of the benefits of a virtual classroom and having a digital LEF is that they don't have to wait till they get to school the next day. They can write at any time in their blog, they can read reflections. You can give homework to each other, like I want you three to work on such and such a question, and write feedback to each other. And the next time we have class, I'm going to come and sit just with you three and look at it because you're all struggling with the same challenge. And so I'd like to work on that. There's so many different ways that you can take advantage of having a blog outside of classroom hours, because I know one of the complaints in IP is that you see your students so seldom, and we're very cognizant of that. The teacher is the administrator. So you could decide, as I said, once a week or every night or whenever you're just about to see your IP students, to write a blog entry that you want everybody to think about. And the students have access to read whatever you've written there, and they have the ability to comment as well. You could also include in there not just things that you write, blog entries, but due dates, a calendar, homework, assignments, reflection questions. Just in the same way that a student can attach things to their blog entry, you could attach things that you want the students to look at as well. So that's probably the simplest and the easiest way to start, is with the teacher as administrator and the students as participants, but not as administrators. The second type is the teacher as administrator and the students as users. In this organizational structure, there would be a classroom blog where the students as well would be able to write posts, and the teacher would be able to write posts. So, for example, the blog that you saw in Kim's classroom, each student had their own individual page. They could go into each other if Kim decided that she wanted them to read each other's blogs, they could do that, and they could comment on each other's blogs. But each student had an individual blog, as well as the teacher having a blog where she or he could post, as we talked about earlier, post publications for everyone to read and comment on. When we're talking about simple definition of a blog, it's really just a place on the internet where you can publish information. Blogs definitely facilitate the aspect of writing. They motivate kids to write because it's what they're comfortable with, it's what they know, it's their kind of what they're surrounded with all the time. So if you just transfer that into the classroom, obviously it facilitates writing at a more scholarly level and learning how to write about their learning process. But they can, as I said before, they can store all kinds of things, videos and photos and podcasts and hyperlinks to other sites that they may have created or they may be using. The third is the more complex, and it really hands over autonomy almost completely to your students, where they're the administrators of their own blog. So they could virtually change the format of what it looked like. The teacher just becomes the accompagnateur, and the notion of having the classroom is a little bit diminished over the individual blogs of the students. So I would say for now we're really looking at, if you decide to create a virtual classroom, we're really looking at the first one or the second one. And this is a rubric based on the progression of your own ICT competency. One of the things that we know is that many of us as educators use technology in our everyday lives quite easily and with quite a lot of comfort. For some reason, we don't all translate that into our work lives. We don't all translate it into our classroom teaching. And so there seems to be a bit of a disconnect between what we're able to do ourselves in our personal lives and what we are doing in the classroom and asking of our students. So this is kind of the progression of an ICT competency. Okay, so we've come to the end of our information session. So thank you very much.